Valerie, your neighborhood pyrography artist. Sorry, clicked on the wrong thing. And we are Happy New Year. Enjoying with hubby.
Okay.
And for our babies.
Woof.
To lay down.
Woof.
Woof, woof, woof. And this month, January, every year, is Portrait Month. And I thought we would do old historical photos. So for me, I have picked Edgar Allan Poe. And I've done a little bit of change here. Super Toasties have the pattern for Edgar. I'm running a little late because I just transferred it. So I will take a moment before we get started to check my lines, make sure we're all good on that.
Yeah, the trash.
And I'm heating up on 3 the 9M since we are starting with the eyes. Need to get into the small space. All right. Hey, Wanda. Hey, Michelle. And hopefully we will have some more people come in. We're going to get started. Michelle set an alarm. She's in Australia, so it's like 5 a.m. for her.
Oh, wow.
How awesome is she?
That's amazing.
I know.
Thank you for joining us.
I know.
Is this a super toasty or is this a
No, this is public.
Oh, okay.
This is public. This is for everybody. But come February, we will be back in just the super toasty. All right. So let's get started and check our photo to our pattern to our transfer. What is she doing?
She's getting stuff and showing it.
Oh, I swear, puppies. All right, so this is.
No.
Get her out, please. If we're not going to do it, this is tracing paper. I've printed on it. The easiest way to do it is to get a top-down printer, which I have linked in Amazon, I believe, just specifically for my patterns. That way I can see where on the wood everything is lining up. It makes things so much easier. And I'll tape it over here just so I have it. Why are we having a day, children? We haven't even started yet. So I know it's hard to see. We got our lines. As I was transferring, because of the eyes and the hair,
Roxy.
I kept being reminded of Albert Einstein. Sorry. He looks very similar to that. So I'm going to quickly just any lines that don't feel dark enough for me to see as I'm burning. I'm going to quickly make sure that is all taken care of. Just real quick, make sure we're all good before we get started. It's easier to take that extra minute just to check your pattern with everything else before you get going. Let's see here, that one goes this way. Alrighty. All the heavy dark places I actually made thicker lines just so it was easier and I knew what was thick. And this is just a regular mechanical pencil, and I have, it is, I'm trying to remember the size of the lead. It's either 0.4, it's 4, it's 0.4. So it's a thinner lead. And I'm using HB just because it's easier to erase from the wood. Alrighty. I think we are good to go.
Wanda wants to know what you did with your finger. And Roxy is saying
this finger? This was a sanding accident last night. I was trying to get this board sanded. I was sanding the back of the board, and I'm sanding and I'm sanding and I'm not paying attention, and I bumped the tip of my finger and sliced it with the sander.
It's not as bad as it looks. That's just the...
Yeah, it's not. It was just to keep the Band-Aid on because it's the very tips of the Band-Aid's going over the top. So this is just to keep it in place. Alright, I could actually, based on the size of this, go with the 18 extra small because it is such a large area. Probably make things easier if I did that. Alright, let's get this, because this is where his eyelid, or I'm sorry, his eyelashes are. But one, because it's an old photo, we don't see the details of those eyelashes there. That works better. They're just going to be the thick, if we look over here, they're just thick lines because one, they're pointing at us, so we don't see detail of what's pointing at us the same way as detail when it's curved or when it's moved. See, we don't see the whole pencil. We only see the tip. But as we turn it, we see more and more and more. But right now his eyelashes are pointing directly at us. So we don't see a whole lot. Now I looked up the word so that I can pronounce it right, and I am going to switch over to the 18 extra small, a little over 3. And I don't have it.
What are you looking for?
I'm going to use the phone to pronounce. This is a reproduction. It's not a tintype. It wasn't created from a tintype. The word is, let me turn this up. I just want it to be said correctly. So here it is. This is what it's a reproduction from. If you will talk.
Daguerreotype. Daguerreotype.
A daguerreotype. That's how it's spelled. That's what the photo that you're looking at here, which is a large photo, I just zoomed in so we could focus on the eyes. That is what this is reproduced off of. So I have it linked in the description if you want to see the original. I'm going to start with the right eye. I'm looking at my photo, and he's thick right here, thins, and turns and gets thick again.
No.
Now with these old photos, I'm actually going to bump up to 3.5.
You have a piece.
You have to decide what information you want. Like, looking at this photo, you can see how grainy and rough it is. I don't need that for the piece. I don't need it to be rough and grainy. So what I'm going to do, because it's a U, we know it's thicker on this side, so I'm going to use the edge, go up to the top line, and curve down, and then I can start filling in, and I'm just using the edge of the pen, at the tip, and drag down. And then I have to fill in over here where it's thicker. So I'm going to use the tip. Turn it up real quick. And now these darks in this piece, we really need them, because that's how this photo was taken. And we're going to go on this side, thicken this side up. Now I can see there's a bit of a shadow. I'll come back to that. So it's thicker right here. And it's thicker at the top. I'm actually going to bump down to 3 because of 3.5. Pull some heat off my tip and quickly drag. Thicken this up. And then I'm going to come down on this side, dragging flat so that it makes a thicker stroke. Let's put that shadow in real quick. And then for the eyeball, I've only got the brightest areas. Because this is not a clear photo, we can't really see where the pupil is, but we can guesstimate. But because of how this photo is, we don't have to put the actual pupil in, because I still want it to look old. I just wanted to be able to read it how it is. So what I'm going to do is, I know the pupil for an eye is about here. I'm not going to go full dark. Zoom you guys in. There we go. Because I lifted my pen, it completely recovered heat. And I'm going to move quickly just to control the temperature of the stroke. You can always darken things up. So much harder to lighten them. So make sure I don't lose where this eye is. Flip it. It is closer to the corner of the eye. And this side is lighter. That's just the way it is in the... So I know it's somewhere around there, but I am not going to stress about where it is right now. I want more depth in the eye. Just pay attention to where the darks are. And then underneath the eye, the eyeball. Oh, my eyes are blurry. We have a thick, I can't remember what this is called. The inside lid at the bottom. The eyelashes come from the base of it. I can't remember what it's called.
Oh, I don't know.
That one's pretty thick. You can see. You make this bigger. This is an 8x10 on basswood. Right now my eyes are a little blurry. And then we have, so all this goes together. Again, I can always darken later, so I'm not going to stress about that, but I'm going to bump down to 2 because we do have some shadow within the eye that I don't want to be too dark. This. And because of how this eye is more round in the photo, so I need to pay attention to that. Get this shadow in. Again, I can always darken. Just slow down my pen, and even at 2, it's going to darken. Now I don't feel this is round enough. So I need to bring it out more. Guesstimate where the pupil is and just darken that a little bit. Bring a little bit of dark down. And see, whether you're doing a historical person or an old family photo, you're going to have the same issues. I just said person of historical interest. That way you could feel less emotionally attached to it. And in that way, you spend the time learning versus really trying to be perfect at it. Because that's the purpose of these every January. It's not to be perfect, it's to learn, do it. Alright, so under here is really white, so I'm going to skip it. It's going to have some shadow, but right now I'm going to skip it and come down. We have shadow under that eyelid. And I'm going to put that in real quick, and then I'll put a top line, and we'll move over to this side. I do feel I'm not making it wide enough. I will just thicken up that stroke a little bit, make it a little more round. And I'm just kind of skipping the pen and not necessarily committing to a stroke right now. I'm just scrumbling the pen across the wood. Very technical term. Scribbling. See, one thing you got to pay attention to, and I don't know that I did on this eye, and that is, especially for the super toasties, if you're going to use the pattern, I use thicker lines in drawing it. So you'll have to decide, do you want to, let me pull this out real quick. And this is regardless of what pattern you're doing. So on this, we've got a thick line. When transferring, you have to decide, do I want to go up against this side of the line or the outside of the line? Now, with going on the outside, it does make it slightly bigger, whereas on the inside of the line is going to keep it relative size to your reference photo, because the strokes are so big. So you'll have to decide which side you want to draw it in. And looking at this, when I transferred both sides, and that's what's throwing it off. Oh, sorry about that. There's my eraser. It's this one. So what I'm going to do is take out that top line and focus more on the bottom line. And in doing that, it's going to make that eye bigger like it should be. And work with the shape. So you got to really pay attention to that on transferring. So I know this line, which also means I need to bring down the eyeball to that line, keeping it as round as possible. In order to get everything in the right place. So this was an oops on my part while transferring. Not the pattern itself, just trying to keep that as round and circular as possible. And what we're going to see is the eye is going to get bigger. And more in the right spot. But if you put in that dark pupil immediately, you might have to do a little sanding. So it's better to wait on that. Alright, so we know the eye is down here. And I'm just moving very quickly so I can see the shape of it. And now we can see how the eye just got bigger.
Just letting you know, you've got two dogs that are like under the wheels of your chair.
Okay. And this line actually comes down straight and then goes over that. Because I'm at 2 right now, so I'm not going to be burning as hot as I was. But I can drag down this line. There's some shading. And now the eye reads better. There we go. Now it looks more correct. Things happen, even with your own pattern. Let's see here. This goes up right here.
You know, we just watched The Raven, which is not historically accurate, but it does contain some historical, information about Poe. In that version, John Cusack plays Edgar Allan Poe, and looking at your reference, I can see where they chose him because his eyes really have a striking similarity to Poe's.
Yeah. Now I'll say right out the gate that I absolutely didn't agree with everything in regards to what Poe did within his life. Mm-hmm. None of us are perfect,
or perfect.
Oh, perfect. But I first heard of him when I was 10 years old, and I share this with the Secret Toasties. When I was 10 years old, I'm going to bump up just under 3, and that was in 10th grade. I'm sorry, 5th grade. I was 10, duh. 5th grade English class, and we were studying poems. And the poem we studied was Annabelle Lee. And I should have put a link to a reading of it. I'll come back and do that later. You can find it on YouTube. And that poem, even as a kid, it just kind of, I don't know the best way. I wouldn't say spoke to a 10-year-old, but you know what I mean. Well, but it
clearly made
an impression. Fill this in real quick so I can go back and darken it. I just didn't want to screw up my place again.
Sheila is here.
Hey, Sheila.
She was eating dinner.
So yeah, it's 6. It's after 6 for her. That's when I first heard of Poe, and then I didn't hear anything. I don't remember anything for years. And there's still plenty of poems of his I haven't read, but I do have them.
We had to read some of his stories in school. So I think we had to read The Telltale Heart and The Cask of Amontillado in particular. Maybe The Mask of the Red Death.
I have them, both on Audible and in book form.
And because of that, I had read some Poe. But I didn't see anything on it in popular culture until The Simpsons
I know what you're talking about.
Did their Treehouse of Horror.
Mm-hmm.
And they featured, the Raven.
Yeah, Clifton.
Yeah, that is a Simpsons thing. And then...
Yeah, because Bart was the Raven.
Yeah.
Alright, so now I can darken this area. This is the indent of the eyelid, where the eyeball is underneath. And so he's got very deep inset.
I think Wanda might have some...
Oh, she got it. She got it.
She just threw out a line there from the poem.
Her mother did a wonderful job with her growing up. She had all his poems on an album.
Oh.
And so Wanda grew up listening to the poems. So she can nail it all day long.
Wanda's got some culture.
More than me. So I'm hoping Wanda will burn along. Especially since especially since you have the pattern. Just transfer and go. So I'm just darkening it slowly so I don't have another oops like I did with the eyeball. So I can darken it slowly. I can come back. Not going to stress about it because all of this is in shadow. It's just different depths of shadow. So like this up here is his eyebrow, but in the reproduction, it's really hard to tell where exactly it is. So I know I'm going to run flat. I'm going to flip my board so that I can drag in the direction of the eyebrow. And I'm going to not be too absolute with it, the stroke, meaning I'm going to drag and flat. It's going to give me unevenness, which in this case is exactly what I need.
So Wanda says she has a pattern, but not on the board yet.
Awesome! I can't wait to see her do it.
Wanda was saying, by the way, Sheila is here.
Yeah, we said hi to Sheila.
Oh, wait.
Happy New Year!
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we got Sheila.
Sorry.
We got her.
She says she'll be caught up by next week. Now,
Perfect.
What I meant to say was that she said that she had started Beethoven.
Oh.
And then
Beethoven?
realized that you'd put out the pattern for Poe. So she started on him too.
Do them both. The only reason I wouldn't do more than one right now is I have some I need to finish, because my goal, and this is just a goal, because I don't want it to be absolute, because I know Wanda's down there, and hopefully we'd get to see her.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah, she's down close to Mesa. Looking at doing the Desert Wood Carving Show this year.
Oh, that would be cool.
Which this year is February 24th and 25th.
Okay.
We would only be there on the 25th, but because that's a lot of driving to do back and forth.
No, yes.
We know. We've done it. Alrighty. Get that shadow in there. Make sure the shape is right. Now we have a bigger eye than what I started with because of misdoing the transfer. I can real quick just put in this shadow just so I know where it's at. I probably could have sanded the board a little bit more, but after I didn't want to bleed on it. I was already bleeding. I didn't want to bleed on it.
That's always a good policy.
Yeah. Alright, so I'm just going to block it in.
And limit your bleeding.
At least on the wood, anyway. I mean, then it would seem like I did a sacrifice of some kind.
Oh, good Lord.
You know what I mean? If there was blood on the board.
Yes.
So, now eyebrows, as they curve around the face towards the ear, they do go out of focus and are less defined. And we have a little bit, almost like he's wearing makeup, but he's not. This photo was taken a year before his death. Again, it's not a photo, so to speak. I mean, it is, but it isn't. But I'm just going to call it that so I don't confuse everybody. But this was taken a year or less before his death.
So it's not a photo, but it is a...
It's a reproduction.
It's a mechanical reproduction, right?
It is a reproduction of... So the...
Did you say it was...
I'm not going to say it right again, so I'll just play it in
It's Daguerreotype.
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 Yeah, and what it is it's a copper plate, and it is an early photo.
Yeah.
But it is a copper plate employing an iodine-sensitive silvered plate and mercury vapor. Let's see here. Creating a highly detailed image on a sheet of copper plated with a thin coat of silver without the use of a negative. The process required great care. The silver-plated copper plate had to be first cleaned and polished until the surface looked like a mirror. So this is a reproduction or a photo, a copy printed from the Daguerreotype. Which is also why it has like bigger flaws than a normal photo would. Which to me can be even more interesting. Now, what I don't have up on screen is how I want my final part of this burning to look. And that is, this is his wife, and I just went blank on her name. He was... what was her name? I can very quickly... Virginia. I wanted to call her Sarah, but it's Virginia. He died 2 years before his death. And where I got the photo for her to be in the background, this is going to be a black background with her just barely, just very faint ghost of her looking down. The thing is he didn't have a photograph of her. This is actually a watercolor painting done by, and I need to get her name so I can link it down in the description. Don't want to not do her justice. She took care of Virginia at the end of her life. And the painting itself is of her, the photographs in the past that they did the death photos. This is a death painting done in watercolor by the woman that took care of her. She died of TB. I just want to make sure I give her the credit she deserves, even though she's not with us. As artists, we got to be kind and supportive of other artists.
That's right. We gotta look out for each other.
Yeah, whether they're still with us or not. So he is going to be so far pushed in the back that is just a faint illusion of her. And that's because Annabelle Lee, the poem, was released a year after his death. It was the last completed poem he did before he died. And unfortunately, he didn't tell anybody who it was about. But if you read letters that are verified from him about his wife Virginia, you get this sense that the poem itself is also about her. So that's why I have her in the background. This piece is, unless somebody really, really wants it, this piece is for me to hang on the wall behind us to go with my decor. So that's why I have her placed in there. So I bumped up to 3.5. I'm using the edge. I'm turning, dragging towards me. And this eye is very much a different shape on the reproduction. Now I don't, more than likely, it looks that much different because of how the light's hitting him. But I don't think his eye is going to be that far off. Drag this down. Do it so lightly. Since I messed up the last time, I don't want to have to try to fix it. But these are hard to read photos for detail. But again, if you're going to do one of an ancestor, the photos are going to be similar in hard to read ways. So just good practice.
So Wanda, she says that's interesting information. And she says it looks almost like he had a mild case of Bell's palsy with that eye dripping.
Yeah, but it is very possible, but it could also just be the photo, because this is the photo is a reproduction of a reproduction. So, especially of a reproduction from over 200 years ago, it's going to be deteriorating. And I think it's the light, because I don't have... If I could find a person who had a very, very, very... that it looked like Edgar came back in a new body that looked like his old body, and I could use that photo as the reference, I would. I don't... Here, I'll show you. I zoomed in. Sorry if that was in your ear. I bumped the mic. Because if we look, we can kind of guess that the eye, based on the other eye, goes like this. And I do see a faint, very faint line, but we have this white right here that kind of degrades what we're seeing. So I can try put this one in over here, just so. And it brings the eye up a little bit. But I'm not 100% sure if that's correct, because none of us have seen him. You know, it's one thing like, say, Marilyn Monroe. You would be able to find other references of her, even if it's just looking at a movie, to see how on you are. But with people like him, we don't have that benefit. So I'm going to guess the lower lid. And see, some of this is going to be his eyelash, his bottom lashes. And then we've got this right here that I have no idea what it is. And when I zoom out on the piece, on the drawing, it doesn't make a big difference. So I had to go back and forth. Do I want that? Do I not want that? Because I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's attached to the actual original plate, or if it's like a scratch that occurred, so it... I don't know what it is. Or if it's a shadow with the light hidden. I don't think he had a mole on this eye, but you never can tell. And I wonder, okay, let's look at this one. Could this be like this? Does that read?
Wanda says when she looked at the photos from Wikipedia, most don't show that.
Let's see, does that fix it? Because it's all done in graphite, I can erase it and not worry about it. But it is hard to tell because we can pull another photo like Wanda's doing and check. Let's put this over here. Go. So I can pull it out of my lap so I can quickly do what Wanda's doing. That I probably should have done in the very beginning. Alright, let's look at some images just so we can tell his eyes. See, it looks like he's wearing eyeliner in that one. But it gives us a better shape on the eyes. Alright, I'm going to take it out. So I'm going to quickly let's see here, we're going to quickly shape the eye. I'm trying to do it the way, that's the bottom of the lid. I'm going to completely ignore that line. If you haven't transferred the pattern, this way. Let's see if it feels more on. Though right now that eye looks smaller than it should. Do bring this out. I'm trying to see if we're close yet. Because normally the bottom of the lid bumps up, unless somebody's all wide-eyed like that. Normally bumps up against. So right now I'm trying to make a choice. I know this needs to go thicker. Let's come down like this.
Yeah, in the context of who he was and the kind of things that he wrote, you know, and everybody has good days and bad days. And it could be that when this seriograph, or not seriograph, the daguerreotype, was done, that, you know, maybe that he had had some problems sleeping or that he had had a rough night.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure that back then, that getting an appointment to, you know, to do something like this is not something that you know, could easily reschedule. It was an opportunity. So.
Well, he was poor most of his life. He did not pay for any of these.
Yeah.
All right. So
I say it made $9 off of the Raven.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So based on, and all I did was mark my eraser just so I can check and ensure. So from edge over into burning. Yeah, that's about right. It right now looks small, but it's just because I need to pull it out more. And these are all little micro adjustments of whether you've been burning for a week or 18 years. You need to learn how to do and be comfortable doing. I intentionally tell you guys when I screw up because I don't want you to think that it always goes perfectly. It never does. Bring that in. But also so that you feel more confident in yourself. Because it's okay to screw up. What's even more important is knowing how to fix it. If you can make sure and feel comfortable in fixing it,
Wanda says that
it's less stressful.
It appears that most of the authors and musicians were not well-to-do.
Mm-mm.
No.
No.
Because
no. Starving artist.
Yep. The industrialization of society was in full swing, and so much like today, you know, where technology continues to, you know, encroach. I'm not going to say threaten because that sounds too sinister.
Yeah.
But like, for instance, you know, we have AI art that is encroaching upon artists' work because it's easy, and it's companies don't have to invest in an actual artist's work, and so we're already seeing companies who are, you know, using AI work. And I don't mean to turn this into an AI discussion, so I'm not going to. But I'm just saying that this has always been the plight of artists of any stripes, whether they be musicians or writers or, you know, visual artists, that, you know, the mechanization of society has always been an issue. And in that time, you know, just like any other time, it takes a long time for somebody to be appreciated for what they do, and there's exceptions to that, of course. If somebody manages to have the right connections and the stars align, then you can get famous. But there are so many artists of all kinds throughout history who were not known for their work until long after their deaths. You know, and he was critically acclaimed at his time, but he was also critically panned as well. So, you know, it's taken a long time for him to get that large following, you know.
And luckily he still has relatives that are alive.
Yeah.
that at least benefit where he couldn't.
Yeah.
Alright, so I bumped down to 2 so I can start putting in the other part.
Yeah. And we're already seeing that. We're already seeing, it's frustrating.
It is.
It's frustrating because people, I'm not gonna say all people, but people, when they see art of any kind, they are wowed by it, however it was made. But a lot of times, people don't really consider how it was made.
Yeah.
They just think, oh, wow, that's a cool image. Wish I could do that. I think in my career, I think that I've seen that, and I've fallen victim to that, where I've seen art, and it's like, wow, how can I, paint like this? Well, it turns out a lot of times that the artists that I'm looking at, they're not necessarily painting, they're photo bashing in Photoshop. There's nothing wrong with that. It's an art form. It's a kind of art. But it's not what I thought it was. I had a misconception that somebody painted that image from scratch, when what they did was they collaged a bunch of digital images and then reworked them, which is a completely different thing,
In all fairness, I put photos together, but then I burn them.
But then you turn them into hand-drawn art. So, I have always been of the, impressed by that kind of work, and how quickly it could be done, and just like feeling overwhelmed, like, oh my God, I'm never going to get there. But then realizing that it was photo bashed, and what that process is, and how much quicker it is, it is a different thing.
That's why CNC isn't allowed in my group.
Yep.
For that same reason.
Yeah. So, I think it's important to know, to understand how an image was made, and it's not like you can see an image and think it's cool, but for me, if I know that it's been mechanically created, especially with something like Midjourney, which is an AI program, I am far less impressed by it than if it was done by a person, especially if it was done from scratch. If I see a painting that was done by someone, or a pyrography piece that was done by somebody, and I know that the time and the effort and the decisions that they had to make during that process, to me that's far more impressive, and it carries a completely different meaning, which is why we do what we do, But circling back to what Poe's problem was, and what our problems as artists continues to be, is that the percentage of the population that really cares about handcrafted items is significantly small, and that most people, they're going to look for that quick fix. They're going to see an image online and they're going to screenshot it and be like, wow, that's cool, I'm going to make that the background for my phone, or whatever. That's the last they think of it. But that's the struggle that we artists have. Valarie just got a commission. She just
You make it sound like it's a woo.
It is a big deal that you got a commission. Yeah, I mean, and you've had many commissions over the years.
I'm about to say, yeah, that's why I was.
Yeah, big stretch. You've had many commissions, and that's a testament to to your skill as an artist, and also that you have people who do seek out you to do art, and that's an amazing thing in this time and in this day and age. So it's rare.
The eye still feels small, so what I'm going to do now is put in just block in the eyebrows and the darkness around so that I can actually see what's going on. So we're going to do it the same way we did on the other side.
Omar Dario Urdus Ochoa says, Hola.
Hola. Alright, flat. I'm at 3.5. I'm just, again, because we don't have any kind of defined area for the eyebrows, we can be messy. And the fact that it's guys' eyebrows in general, not absolute, but in general, tend to be a little messier and all over the place, less kept.
Yeah.
Not always, again, but that.
We're a bunch of messy bitches.
Well, I don't mean it like that. It's just.
It's true though. Especially as,
and it's not every guy.
No, I know, but especially as men get older, and their eyebrows get crazier and crazier. Most of them.
Yeah.
I try and keep mine in control. It's a task. It's not easy.
Alright. But if I keep them, the strokes all the same, and going across, then it starts looking like soldiers, and it looks fake. So that's why I'm trying to be messy with that and make sure I have some breathing room in between some of the strokes. And what I mean is you can see a little bit in between the burning, but I'm using that to my advantage. I don't want it perfect. Alright, now I'm going to quickly put in these shadows just so I can see what I'm doing. And this eyebrow is going to be longer because that eye is minutely closer to the camera. So we're going to bump down to 2 so we can just quickly block in. I'm going to oval stroke, going up and down with the grain. All this area will have to go darker. For now, I can block some stuff in and then I can erase. Okay, I'm going to bump up to 2.5 because it's going to take forever to fade out. See, I had a thick line for this shadow for here, and I don't feel I need it.
Good property. Yeah.
So I'm going to use that as the starting place for the next shadow. I don't feel this one needs to be as thick either.
Wanda says Poe was known to be disheveled, so he fits the description you guys are discussing.
Well, and he probably was, but what I also write, because I went down the rabbit hole. I went, I like looked at the hole.
2 days.
And I was like, this could be fun. So I just jumped.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Yep. Anyway.
Which is why we ended up watching The Raven.
Yep. Which we had already seen, but I forgot. Anyway, turns out the person who wrote his first biography about Poe was Griswold, and Griswold was a rival of Poe's. And so he took a lot of liberties in regards to information about Poe. He took a lot of liberties and did some real character assassination of him. Now, we don't know exactly what's true and what's not true. And bottom line, it comes down to he said, she said, they all say stuff. Mm-hmm. But definitely can see where he would have been maybe maligned on certain things. Let's see, this needs to be more straight. Let's straighten that out. A little too curved. So I am trying to be careful with, you know, how I think of him, because I couldn't imagine what people who don't care for me would say, you know. So I will give him the benefit of that doubt. More straight. Let's see here. I'm sure the Super Toasties, when they first read I was doing Poe, were thinking, another raven! But no, not this one. This one's got a different meaning. Straighten this line out. Let's do some more erasing. Always fun to erase. Now, in highlighting this piece, especially with the eyes, the highlights aren't going to be bright. Take some more off. Let's back it out, because right now, and again, it is not the right tone, but we need to back it out. And I'm looking at the screen because it's a smaller picture for me to look at, making it a little easier for me to squint and just see if anything's wrong. Oh, that was kind of freaky, huh? Yeah. It almost looks like an X-ray behind.
Yeah, it's a little odd, but
actually, though, I like that. Oh shit, I like that. I like that positioning that I have right here better for his wife, but I don't know how I pull it off because it's the side 3/4. Huh. That's more of what I was going for. Oh, shit. I'll figure that out.
Wanda says it's kind of hard to think of Poe and not think of quote, the Raven Nevermore. I mean, that is what he's known for. I mean,
that's his.
You know, he was known for gruesome and macabre tales.
Well, he actually was the inspiration for
Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, I know, but who's the author?
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Yes, for Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. It was. I'm switching over to the 18 small. I'm just trying to my phone. Off real quick. Alrighty. It does a
Gothic horror. Yep.
Yep. But he is also considered, to some I should say, that way I'm not over as the father of the detective book.
You know, that's kind of odd, though, in my opinion, because I've read many of his stories, and sometimes there'll be somebody who's investigating the story, you know, like in the Telltale Heart.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's about the thing that's happening to the person in the moment, you know, like in the Cask of Amontillado, the whole thing is about him walling up, this guy in a wall, killing him. I can't for the life of me remember any of them that were actual murder mysteries. But
maybe it was the flow and layout.
Maybe.
Versus the actual.
I'm not disputing it. I'm just saying that it seems odd to me.
All right, we are back in there. I'm actually wondering if my highlight, if I need to scrape a little bit more highlight area so that I can get the shape better.
I don't know how long you want to go today, but
Well, I owe them.
We just passed an hour of runtime.
Okay.
Of actual runtime.
Well, does anybody have any questions right so far? I'm just scraping a little bit of the burn off to shape the eye better for the highlight. And we'll wait a minute, see if anybody's got any questions. Can't wait to see how Wanda's is going when she gets started. Hopefully Michelle will jump in. She's interested in portraits, and in this case, I think, unless I really screwed up the patterns for you guys, I think it makes it a little easier to do this one. Let's see here. I'm going light because I need to smooth out, darken some of this. So I'm at 3. This is the small, so it is not going to burn as dark as the extra small because of how it's made, which I actually really like that. Allows me more control, and with the extra small I just don't have to turn the pen up as high. Okay, like that. Alright. So these are the different shapes around the eyes, and we're looking at just following the shapes. These areas are not going to be over detailed. That's just not how these photos were. Definitely not like what we got now. Could you imagine how these artists would feel seeing what we got now?
Oh my goodness.
You know, have a Bill and Ted moment and go back in time, and then all of a sudden they can see things they never could see before.
Yeah. Pardon. Oh, that was sudden.
This down. Next week, because the nose mouth area, I know that is super overwhelming, so we're going to take our time with it, because like the bottom lip, you don't get a clear shot of the bottom lip, so I'm going to go and check some other photos just to make sure I'm not off. The mustache, the Charlie Chaplin mustache, because of the type of photo, we don't have the detail where we see a whole bunch of hairs. This is a perfect example of just the clumps in this case. Very similar to eyebrows. We don't see the detail. As long as we get the shape and the tone right, it will totally read as a mustache on Edgar.
Yeah. In pieces like this where maybe your reference isn't the best, it's really important that you draw what you see, not what you think you see. Because if you try and use the skills that you have that you're used to using, like, oh, well, you know, the lip should go like this or whatever, you know, trying to put more detail into it that's not there, you're most likely going to end up with something that doesn't look like your reference. It's really important to stick to what you see, even if it's limited, you know.
Or even if it looks weird.
Yep.
Because it does look weird.
It'll all work out in the end, though.
Yeah, you got to just stick with it.
Stick to the plan.
Alright, so Michelle is saying that she's picked a cricketer in Australia. Is that something, because I know I put 1948 is like the cutoff. And I don't know how long cricket's been around, but
it's been a while.
I'm sure it's been a long time. And you're saying it has a lot of white. Now, is that team still around? If that team is still around, I would look at the history of their uniforms, and it might be the uniform, if that's the issue, wasn't all white, but that's how it's reading because of the really old photo. So I would go looking for... You're going to have to kind of backtrack from modern back if that team is still around. Again, I don't know anything about cricket. It looks like baseball and...
With really wide bats.
Yeah. Tossed and done in a different way. Let's see here. I gotta blend this out because this looks pretty rough.
Wanda says that she found the same thing with Beethoven's mouth.
Yeah, it's because of the lighting and how long they had to sit in order for the image to be on the plate. So they had to sit perfectly still for minutes on end for everything to be printed on the plate based on light.
Yep.
So it depended on how it was lit, the room, how the person was lit. If they sat there and were perfectly still, that's why the old photos, nobody's smiling because nobody wants to hold a smile for a minute or two. So it's easy just to have resting bitch face in those photos because it was comfortable. So you didn't... The uniform is all white. Oh. You know what, Michelle? Send me the photo in direct message and I'll take a look. It just make it so much easier that way. And then I can give you a better idea of how I would do it. And then you can make your choices from there. So we're not going to see... We're going to miss details that in a modern photo we would see.
And keep in mind too that like the tools that they're working with, you know, even though that they were impressive for the time, you know, however the Daguerreotype works, you know, it had to focus the light through something and
a pinhole.
A pinhole. Okay, so
a pinhole camera that printed on copper.
You're dealing. Resolution was not really a thing back then.
No,
but what you're looking at is really it really amounts to a lower resolution image.
The lowest.
That you don't have as much detail with. So if you think about it in those terms, you know, it's not like you could zoom into this and get better detail.
No, in fact, zooming into it makes you lose detail because it brings it all together. So that's why I've got far away and up close. That way, to draw the pattern, I had to do it up close. Which is why I was having an issue with that eye. And we'll work on fixing that. But from a distance, everything works. So if I put this photo, let me get it, the way just clipping it for the live stream. Go. So if I put this photo back to the size, because it was only like a 3 1/4 photo, and it's so he's really only in the photo about that big. So do you see how much detail we lose? So in trying to make it bigger, you're going to lose that information. That's just the way it is. But now looking at how about the size of the print is, we really only see shapes. We don't see hair strands. We can see a little slight shift in tone along the scarf or whatever it was called, the necktie, just from the folds. The body, the vest part of the body is flat. We see the shading on the side of the face, and there's just a blob for the nose. And you guys probably can see a little better than I can right now. My screen's bigger, so it's smaller. Or not as close. I'm, 2.5 feet away from my monitor versus... Anyway. We just see shapes. We see a V for the vest. We see a half circle and a line down for the necktie. He had a big forehead. That was something that was very... brought up a lot for him.
He had a big scary brain.
Yeah, his brain is... Yeah. He was definitely before his time. But yeah, we got to take all that into consideration. And then try to make a realistic burning. I want it to be realistic because that's where my brain gets, it just goes and, so rather than fight my brain, I'm going to make it realistic but still old. If that makes sense.
Perfectly.
Not. Perfectly not. Alrighty. Wanda forgot about the pinhole fact. Yep.
Yeah.
It's all done. In fact, in high school when I took photography class, we took a coffee can, a big coffee can. We had to puncture a little hole in it. We had to ensure it was light tight and attach a piece of photo paper on the back of the can and then put at the hole and, close it up, and at the front where the pinhole was, put a piece of electrical tape. And then what you did was you removed the electrical tape back, you pulled it back, you had to be very, very, very still and count to different numbers for different exposure rates, and then quickly cover it back up again. For us, the paper printed a lot quicker than it would have for them. I think it was anywhere between 20 and 40 seconds. It's been long. It's been a little while since I took the class, so I can't give exact numbers.
Here's a fun fact.
What's that?
Going back even further to, like the
Caveman?
the Renaissance and no, not the caveman.
Sorry, I thought you were talking about you. I love you.
Anyway, yeah, I love you too. Anyway, going back to like okay, well, Roman times.
Okay.
That pinhole method is not new.
No.
And it's a lot of times it's how that you see these murals and these big frescoes and stuff. A lot of times that's how those were laid out.
Camera obscura.
Yep.
Michelle and I gave her the information on that.
Yeah. So,
Da Vinci used a tracing method.
yeah. So like a lot of people are like, oh, this person is just so naturally talented, they could just whip this out. It's like, well, yes, they were talented, but they also knew how to make their life easier. As an artist, that's what you do.
Yep.
So this is an ancient technique.
So Michelle says she likes to make things difficult for herself.
Well, that's why.
I hear you. I know the pain, sister.
Yep.
Let's back it off.
So do I.
Hey.
Love you.
Love you. Alrighty, next week we're going to do the nose-mouth area, which really needs to be deciphered. It really is a mess. If you're watching and you're not commenting, or you're watching on replay, because this is absolutely available on replay, and you're new, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and hit like, and I'll get it out of my mouth sooner or later. There we go.
Comment.
Yes.
Share.
Leave a comment. Share.
All this stuff helps the channel.
It does.
If you're gonna keep learning burning stuff, you better do it.
And if you're a jerk, just keep on walking.
Yeah.
Had a couple of those lately. That's the only reason I mention that. Anyway.
You gonna do the thing?
I'm going to do the thing. I had to line it up.
Oh.
Alright, you know what to say. You're awesome. You can do this. Why? You're a pyro artist. Happy burning, guys. See you next week.
Quoth the Raven.
Bye-bye.
Happy burning, quoth the Raven.
Happy burning, quoth the Raven. That's funny.